All right, what is up, Utah fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest, and great to be back here with you guys tonight. Really fun show. I've been loving these live stream formats, and I love that you guys are here with me tonight. Let's go ahead and dive in, guys. It's going to be a fun one. We're going to cover a few different things. We're going to talk about the CFP a little bit. We'll talk about where Utah is and kind of how things could shake up based on Utah's ranking. How does Utah get to the CFP from here? Kind of give a little bit of details on that. Then we're going to dive into the Baylor-Utah matchup. It's going to be a lot of fun. Baylor and Utah, Baylor is not a garbage team. I feel like the odds that we win out these next three games are pretty high, right? Like we have a good shot at winning these next three games, and individually, each game we have a very good shot of winning. But none of these teams suck. Like this is not going to be just a cakewalk schedule. And Baylor's probably up there as the toughest matchup. Like it really is a talented team with a bunch of firepower. So today we're going to dive into it, guys. We're going to talk about it all. We'll dive into the team stats, the PFF grades, and then we'll at the end we'll do a little bit of Q&A. So make sure you guys stick around, drop questions in the chat. We'll have a lot of fun, like I said. So keep the questions in the chat, and maybe I'll go through periodically and answer some questions. But at the end, we'll do a lot of Q&A, a lot of rapid fire, just kind of going off. So I made a little spreadsheet for you guys. I'm a little bit of a stats nerd in case you guys are new to the channel. So let's go ahead and share that screen. All right, boom. Okay, so Baylor versus Utah, guys. So I've got stats for both teams on the screen here. Basically, where if it's green, that means it's a top 20 stat. So whatever team we're looking at is top 20 in a stat. If it's green, if it's this light orange, reddish type of color, that means we're looking at a stat that is number 89 or worse. So it is a red alert stat, a problem stat. We're going to look at Baylor. We're going to look at Utah. And the game plan will be to kind of take this info that we get from looking at the stat sheets and use that to, get an idea of what both teams are going to be trying to do against each other and what the success, what will determine success for both teams. So let's go ahead and start, guys. This is fun for me to look at, and I want to make a quick disclaimer. So this is all from teamrankings.com, and this right out the gate, this number, the 36.6, might look a little different than some of the other stats you've seen. I know a lot of the time Utah is showing 39 point something points per game. Just remember, these stats do not include FCS play, which I find to be much purer, much more real stats. So for Baylor and Utah, we're only going to be looking at FBS play here. So when we get to the PFF grades, that includes everything, but the team rankings only include the FBS play. So let's go ahead and dive in, guys. So starting off Utah, really high, 36.6 points per game, number 12 in the country. And as we break it down, one thing to know is that Utah has played the 25th toughest schedule, which makes a lot of these numbers very impressive. Baylor hasn't played an easy schedule either. They've played the 37th schedule. So, those are pretty close schedules. I'd say that just means if it's, you lean Utah when you look at the numbers. You lean it a little bit. Nothing crazy, just you lean Utah a little bit. Nothing crazy, though. So the big one, though, guys, opponent points per game. I didn't know it was this wild. I actually listened to someone else's podcast yesterday, and they were talking about this, that how crazy the differential is in our points per game versus opponents' points per game. And I can really say that stood out to me. 14.9 points per game allowed is crazy. And it's not that shocking when you consider how many blowouts we've had, how dominant we have been. And then this is also really impressive to me. I mean, yards per game, Utah is at 472.1 yards per game. And we'll get into it here in a little bit, guys, that this is like our team just runs the ball at you until you just break your back, dude. That's our game plan, is to just crush you with physicality and tough bully running the ball. Like that's what we do. And to have the number 8 yards in the country, among FBS play is a crazy stat considering how often we're running the ball, but we'll get more into that later. Opponent yards per game, 310.9. I really impressive number there. And that makes the 14.9 points per game even more impressive because we're looking strong in opponent yards per game, very strong, but we're looking elite in opponent points per game. And I think that's kudos to our defense for standing strong and getting the job done when things really matter. Okay, third down conversion, also an exciting one, 51.38% third down conversion for Utah. And I think that does show, and I think it's a credit to us putting ourselves in manageable third down situations, right? I didn't pull up the numbers, but I'd imagine when it comes to 3rd and 5 or less, as someone that watches all the games, like the odds that we wind up in 3rd and 5 or more, really, really solid there. We really set up ourselves in situations where we can convert third downs easily. Fourth downs aren't in the green, but you can tell we're pretty damn good at fourth down conversion as well. We're number 27. Remember, it's only in the green if it's top 20. Opponent fourth down conversions, a little high, but you guys got to remember, like fourth downs, it's not a crazy metric because the truth is with fourth downs, you're only going for it or having opponents go for it against you so many times, right? Over the course of a season, like we're probably talking about a sample size of 20, 25 attempts. There's so many factors that it's not a stat that I take too much to heart. I find the third down one to be much more valuable. Okay, so now moving on to our rushing game, guys. And if you have not been following what Utah has been doing running the ball with the four-headed now monster of Devin Dampier, Wayshawn Parker, Daniel Bray, and Nakari Rogers, you have been missing out because this has been a nasty good four-headed monster for Utah and has wrecked some opponents, guys. If you're excited as we break all this down, guys, make sure you smash that like button. That'll help get it out to more fans. Also, comment down below. We're going to do a Q&A as we get later into the video. So I want to, any questions you guys have, I want to hear them and I want to answer them later on. So let's make it a lot of fun. Enter into the chat. Trust me, I know I'm not focused a lot on the chat right now, but as we get to the end of the video, we will spend a lot of time in the chat. Okay, so this is where Utah is just green across the board, and some of these greens are just ridiculous. So rush play percentage, this is the one that really matters the least. I just put it green because it was technically a top 20 stat, right? Rush play percentage, we're running the ball nearly 60% of the time, number 12 in the country. And don't forget, guys, this is including G5 teams and schools that, the military schools that just run the ball like crazy. So understand how impressive of a stat that is for us to be running the ball in the P4 60% of the time. I didn't look, but I'd imagine we're up there in the top 3, top 4 for running the ball in the P4. Yards per rush. This is a standout number. And I was honestly a little surprised how good this number is. 5.9 yards per carry. That puts us at number 5 in the country in FBS play. So what that tells you is we're getting basically 6 yards a carry in FBS play right now, which is a crazy number, guys. And when you consider, you look right here, how much we run the ball, we're running the ball 45 times per game and getting 6 yards per carry. Those two stats added together are crazy. Like we are just playing bully ball at a level. Now, I'm going to compare us to someone, and this might be a little rich, but we're playing bully ball at like in Alabama mid 2010s, right? 2014, 2015, like, Derrick Henry smashing the ball, just making people look dumb. And maybe that's a generous comparison, but just being honest, I don't think it's crazy when you look at the numbers, right? We really are doing something special. And the icing on the cake, guys, rushing yards per game, 266.4 yards per game rushing the ball. That is number 3 in FBS and number 1 in P4. That is a crazy stat. Utah has not just had success running the ball, we have dominated everyone they put in front of us when it comes to running the ball. Incredible numbers. And the only red stat here is the opponent rushing play percentage, but that is in my opinion, kind of an irrelevant number, right? It's like the opponents, we've had so many games where we were up so much against our opponents that they had to pass the ball a ton. And either way, that number just doesn't matter that much. Opponent yards per rush, we're kind of middle of the road. Oops, you guys, if anyone's ever played around with spreadsheets, you know how that goes. Opponent yards per rush, 4.2 yards per carry. So we're right middle of the road there. Opponent rushes per game, 37.1. So, they're running the ball a decent amount against us. And then opponent rush yards per game. Oh, I guess I misspoke about the opponent rush play percentage. Sorry about that. Opponent rush yards per game, 154.3. So not low, not incredibly high, slightly below average there. We've also played some teams that are pretty damn good running the ball. Like I would give hats off to BYU. They do run the ball very, very well, right? So, okay, now we're going to move on to some stats where Utah as an offense is a little lackluster, right? And a lot of us have known this for a while. So throwing the football for Utah on offense, we're only throwing it 40.5% of the time, which adds up with our 59.5% run. Completion percentage looks very solid. Number 48, 64.02. Yards per pass, a little below average, 6.9. We play a lot of dink and dunk when we're throwing the ball. And passes per game, 29.9. That's number 76. I'm actually just being honest. I thought it might even be a little lower than that. So I don't think it's a terrible number. We're a little more balanced than it might seem. Our offense is definitely out there a ton, to be number 76th in passes per game and to be number 7 in rushes per game. So our offense is on the field a ton because we are time of possession, controlling, dominating the opponent. Now, this is a big one. Interceptions thrown above average, so we're not throwing a ton of interceptions, but this is a big one right here. QB sacked percentage, only 2.45%, number 6 in the country. Again, another credit. We'll dive into the actual PFF grades later in the video, and we'll dive deeper into the actual matchups that are going to make this game matter. But I think going through this sheet is going to give us a good pretext to what we're going to want to look at. So Utah, again, offensive tackles, interior offensive line has done an amazing job, just ridiculous job of keeping our quarterback upright. And on top of that, let's go ahead and throw some kudos to our quarterback, Devin Dampier. He's also done a heck of a job staying upright himself and, staying in control and avoiding a lot of sacks that otherwise would have happened if he didn't make a play. Now, this is where this sheet gets very impressive. And if you're not aware, spoiler alert, Baylor is a monster when it comes to throwing the ball. They have a bunch of different receiving weapons. They have a quarterback that's averaging over 300 yards per game throwing the ball. They throw the ball and they do it at a high click, at a high clip, and they come at you and then they get the job done. Now, where Utah has a big advantage heading into this game is that is actually what our defense has done an amazing job at shutting down, right? You look at this guy's opponent pass play percentage, 44.69%. So a little low on that end, how much our opponents are actually trying to throw against us. But a lot of that is probably because of how elite our pass defense has been. Check out this number. This stood out to me, guys. I don't know about you, but I knew we were doing well, but damn. Our opponent completion percentage is 50%, number 2 in the country. Holy crap, dude. That is impressive. 50%, number 2 in the country. And another thing where Sawyer Robertson, for a guy that, is running the offense almost exclusively, like you guys will see when we break down Baylor, it's like they're like the inverse of our offense. It's actually an interesting, fun matchup because you have the team that just will not stop running the ball at you, and then you have the team that just is going to throw the ball at you all day in Baylor. So it's really a very peculiar matchup and something I'm excited to see. And opponent yards per pass, we're only allowing 5.6 yards per completion. Opponent pass yards per game, another very impressive stat in our favor. We're only allowing 156.6 pass yards per game, so very impressive there. And sack percentage, another really impressive number. We are number 11 in the country in FBS play, 9.17% sack percentage. Very, very dominant play for Utah in the trenches. Need a little bit of water there. And then you see all the turnover stuff here. Utah's basically right in the middle. I won't bore you guys with the turnover stuff, but that's kind of where we are. I'm about to move on to Baylor, guys. We're going to break it down. Before I do so, if you haven't already, guys, like the video. Also, as we get later into the video, like towards the end, we are going to do a Q&A, and I'm going to answer any questions you guys have. Excited to talk to you guys. And last time, how we handled the Q&A, I really enjoyed it. We just kind of rapid fired at the end. I felt like that was a great way to close it out, answer any questions you guys have, hear your thoughts. So make sure you stick around and subscribe if you guys haven't already. Okay, now we're talking about Baylor. So Baylor's no joke, right? Their offense is a good offense. They have some serious flaws and some serious good spots to their offense. I think I like serious flaws to their team and serious upside to their team. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So points per game, 32.8. That's very respectable. Number 24, that is, right outside the green range, which is very, very good. So they're one of the better teams in the country. And like I said, they've played the 37th toughest schedule. They're not playing a cakewalk, and they're putting up 32.8, so basically 33 points a game. Yards per game, even more impressive. They're averaging almost 400 or over 450 yards per game, 452.3 yards per game. Very, very, very dominant stuff there. Nothing else really worth touching on. A little low in the third down conversions. I mean, it's about average, but it's not very impressive. Fourth down conversion, red zone scoring a little bit low there as well. That's one thing I've noticed about Baylor as we break them down. Just getting an idea of what they do, it feels like it's a lot of chunk plays. There's a lot of they're taking shots downfield. I believe it will, when we get to the PFF side of things, after we finish the team stats, we'll talk PFF. But I believe it's almost 20% of his attempts are 20 plus yards, and he completes them at a pretty high rate. But you can see why they might be stalling out in the red zone, because it feels like that is a big part of their game, is chunk plays, taking shots, contested catch opportunities, that sort of thing. So now moving on. So Baylor as a rushing team, just being real about it, pretty dreadful, right? This stat's not red, the yards per rush, but that's like, I would say your yards per rush should be pretty damn high considering how much you throw the ball. If you do run the ball when the opposing defense is just absolutely expecting absolutely expecting pass, you should probably have a wide open lane for your running back. So the fact that you're not, in the at least average range is a bit of a disappointment. So I'd say it's not in the red, but it might as well be. Rushes per game, towards the bottom of college football. Rush yards per game, towards the bottom of college football, 131.1. But then this is where, if you're Baylor, you should probably be a little concerned. So we just kind of broke down Utah's numbers and what Utah is going to be looking to do. And it feels pretty clear Utah is going to be looking to run the ball like they do every single game. Well, look at Baylor's rushing defense. So opponents are running the ball on them at nearly a 56% rate. Opponent yards per rush is 4.7 yards per rush, guys. We're averaging 5.9. So if they're allowing 4.7, I mean, we have gone up against some defenses that were way less average yards per rush than that. Think Texas Tech, think Arizona State. I mean, really defenses that were not going to be easy to run against. To me, that is a glaring weakness for Baylor that Utah is going to try to take advantage of. An opponent rushing yards per game, I mean, they're allowing nearly 200 rushing yards per game. I won't harp on that too much. We'll get into it, guys. But, it feels very clear that Utah is going to try to run the ball against them like they do everyone. And it doesn't look like Baylor is set up to be able to stop that run. Okay, so moving on to the passing, this is where Baylor does become an impressive team. I don't know why I had that orange. Let me fix that for any Baylor fans watching. It should be green. They throw the ball at a crazy pop, 56.67%. And this is where their numbers start to look, a little more intimidating, where it is like, no, they are a very high-powered passing offense. the first thing to look at is passes per game. They're throwing it over 41 times per game. Pass yards per game, over 320 pass yards per game. And interceptions thrown is pretty low. Their QB doesn't get sacked a ton either. That's above average by quite a bit. That's in the good range. And they're not an incredible. They don't get a very good pass rush. We'll talk about that when we break down the numbers. They don't get a very good pass rush. But most of their other numbers are about average, right, when it comes to actual pass defense, and they don't force a ton of interceptions. So that's kind of what's worth covering there. Turnover margin, they're one of the worst teams in the country for turnover margin, ton of giveaways, ton of takeaways. And you notice their interception percentage is very low. One, they do throw the ball a ton. So even though the interception percentage is low, it still could be a good amount of interceptions. But more than that, they do have a decent amount of fumbles on the team. But either way, a lot of these turnover numbers don't look good, right? The only thing they look good at is interception thrown percentage. So that is that, guys. Next, we will go ahead and move on to the PFF grades. So next up, we're going to the PFF grades. Let's take a second. Let's go through the chats. Oh, we got a bunch of chats in here. So I'm going to go through your chats. And then once we go through the chats, we will jump over to the PFF grades. San Diego Ute fan says, let's go. Go Utes. D tier. What up, dude? Go Utes. Thought this was a premiere, not a live stream. Let's go. We take number 13. Baylor is a good team that had some struggles. I think their defense is exploitable. Absolutely. You know what's funny is I actually said we were going to talk a little bit about the college football playoff stuff. I have it queued up here. So good thing you dropped that comment, and good thing I decided to address the chats. So let me put the little thing up here. CFP. Okay, guys, CFP. So a lot of people were talking about Utah potentially being above BYU after BYU's loss to Texas Tech on Utah's bye. I thought that was a little crazy. Like, we've lost to Texas Tech. We have a worse record than BYU, and we've lost to BYU. Like, just being real, that felt weird that people thought that would happen. And so we are right behind BYU, which is kind of how I would have pictured it. I could have even seen them having BYU a little higher, right? They have one loss, and it's an away game to, the monster of the Big 12 in Texas Tech. So one cool thing I like about this, guys, I think we've been talking about this for a while, is, Utah has scenarios where Utah could get into the Big 12 championship. Those scenarios are pretty unlikely, right? Just being real. Those scenarios are pretty unlikely. But this layout makes it feel like the CFP scenarios could really happen, like really, really looking good. And let me point this out to you guys. So BYU, let's imagine Utah and BYU went out from here on, right? Went out from here on. And they slowly kind of climbed together, right? 1-1 and 1-1 and 1-1. And let's imagine they finished something like 9-10 or 10-11, right? And BYU winds up going to the conference championship. Both teams are 10-2. And BYU loses in the conference championship while Utah just went on a huge stretch. I mean, think about what we would have at that point. The Colorado domination, the Cincinnati domination. Hopefully Baylor, Kansas, and Kansas State are also pretty hefty wins. If we have that 5-game resume to close out the season, it is going – I know a lot of people are going to hate that this could happen because they think it's devaluing conference championships. But there's a real world where the teams that play in that conference championship, only one of them goes to the CFP, and the Big 12 is still a 2-bid league, and Utah's that second bid. You know what it is, guys? I've brought this up so many times. Utah's averaging 30-plus points per win. Our wins, and don't forget, we beat Arizona State, who beat Texas Tech, right? We are railroading people when we beat them. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on this, but I did want to address that, guys. So every time we hit that field from here on out, be aware that we are really, really playing for a shot at that college football playoff. Let's keep going through the chats here. Tyler Edit says, that is crazy. Number 2 in the country, forcing a 50% completion percentage. It's crazy, but it makes sense. Sorsby is one of the most efficient QBs we've played. We made him look silly, 11 for 33. You're absolutely right, Tyler. You're absolutely right. We made Sorsby look amateur, right? We really did. And even more than that, you take out two plays to Cypress Allen, and his stats look disgustingly bad. Like he would have thrown for 60 yards. So pretty crazy. Steven says, thank you for doing those videos. I just smashed a centipede watching this. I don't know what that means. Is that an innuendo or did you actually kill a centipede? Anyways, is when Car Wash says this will be an easy one. Baylor is bad. Baylor's not super well rounded, but I wouldn't call them bad. Car Wash. I mean, they do have one of the best pass offenses in the country, and a team with that type of athleticism and playmaking ability, I definitely wouldn't count them out. Steve says go Utes. PNW Utes says anybody drops from top 12 and Utes might be in. Yeah, absolutely, guys. The other thing to know about that is Oklahoma and Texas. Oklahoma and Texas are almost guaranteed to drop out of the top 12 before the season's over. Like Texas plays Georgia and Texas A&M before the season ends. And then Oklahoma plays Alabama, LSU, and I don't know who else off the top of my head, but like the odds that they beat Alabama are pretty incredibly low. Professor D23 says Texas and Oklahoma lose at least one more. Oh, that's what I just said. And then Tyler says both Texas and OU have to play Alabama. Yep, we're saying the same thing. PNW Ute says Sorsby ended the Ute game sore. Yeah, absolutely. He got attacked. And Steven, it was not an innuendo. He actually killed the centipede. Okay, people. Now we are moving into the meat and potatoes. Who is ready for some PFF grades? We are going to dig in. The show is really just getting started. The fun is just about to pop off. Before we get into the PFF grades, guys, make sure you guys smash that like button. That's going to help get the video out to more Utah fans. Also, comment down below. I want to know what your guys' thoughts are. Anything I'm missing, any thoughts. And then again, we're going to do the Q&A, a full run through at the end of the show here. And it'll be, pretty hefty, pretty in-depth. So make sure you guys don't forget to drop your questions in the chat and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, guys. Let's go ahead and dive in and let's check out the PFF grades. Usually I haven't done the live streams for PFF in a while. And usually I get a couple takes on this when I'm doing my recording. So, okay. Let's do it. Might need to go grab another water at some point, but that'll be okay. Sawyer Robertson, guys, he is kind of the lifeblood of this Baylor team, a guy with a ton of hype heading into the year, finished out the end of last season incredibly, and actually started off this season very, very high powered. Not that he's overall, the season's still very good, but he's kind of, straight off a little, not quite as dominant as he looked early in the year. Even though they were still losing some games, his numbers were pretty outrageous. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in. The first thing to notice is 26 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. That's a really impressive number. But I do want to point this out, is that his big-time throws are 20 and his turnover-worthy plays are 17. And the reason I point that out is that 26 to 7 TD to INT ratio is very far off from the 20 big-time throw to 17 turnover-worthy plays. So sometimes you got a guy that's making mistakes and the defense just isn't capitalizing on it. And, that's not a terrible ratio, but it's not good either. It's kind of, it's really similar to the Devin Dampier range, where we've all watched Devin Dampier this season make some pretty rough throws, if we're being honest. So for Sawyer Robertson to be in that range, not looking good for Utah. Now, I do want to show you guys passing depth. Now, this is interesting. I don't usually do this in the PFF grade breakdowns, but I do think it's worth talking about. So taking a look here, guys. So these are deep shots. This is when he takes deep shots going downfield, and the deep shot, according to PFF, is a throw of 20 plus yards. So take a look here, guys. He has had 17.2 of his total attempts are going downfield. That is really high, guys. That's almost 1 out of 5 throws is going for 20 plus yards. He's taking a 20 plus yard shot on that many throws. And he's completing 38.1% of those downfield throws. Just so you guys understand, that is a pretty intimidating number. That nearly 40%, over 1 out of 3 of his throws, 20 plus yards, are completed. That's pretty impressive. Going deep, he's got 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and this is usually not what these numbers look like, guys. And he's got 15 big time throws to only 8 turnover worthy plays. So this guy does thrive in taking shots downfield, and it explains a lot of why he's had such ridiculous numbers. Okay, let's go ahead and check out his intermediate passing. So intermediate passing, another very impressive numbers here. So 14 TDs, 4 INTs, but it's not that impressive. So the grade doesn't look bad. It's 75.1. But for a guy that makes his money throwing the ball, intermediate is 10 to 20 yards. So it's anywhere from 10 to 20 yards. And I'd actually think he would have higher than a 50% completion percentage. And you look here, this is pretty dangerous. 5 big time throws to 7 turnover worthy plays. And that's pretty high, all things considered. I mean, if that's how they're going to supposedly win this game, is throwing the ball, not super impressed there. Now let's take a look at the short passing. So this is standing out pretty strongly. So Sawyer Robertson is only completing 73.6% of his passes behind under 10 yards, which you'll see. We'll talk about Dampier, so you'll get a bit of a comparison on what these numbers look like. But that's not a super high number. He only 2 touchdowns, 0 INTs, and 0 big time throws, 1 turnover worthy play. And what percentage of the throws? Only 33% of the time is this guy throwing short. That is pretty wild. I hope these stats are standing out to you guys as much as they are to me. 33. So 2 out of 3 of his throws are going to be 10 plus yards. This is an offense. I mentioned it earlier in the video. They take shots downfield. They thrive on chunk plays, and it's not surprising that they struggle in the red zone. Good thing we have had quite a good red zone defense this year. Let's go ahead and move on to the Baylor receiving crew. So taking a look at the receiving crew, they do have a nasty room of receivers. And as we break all of this down, one thing worth considering is how are we going to match up with these guys? What is it actually going to look like in reality, right? They're probably not going to have these guys all on the field at the same time. But just to get an idea, like I would imagine, at least all these guys that are 24, 28 targets, they'll probably see the field at least moderately. And it's all going to start with this tight end here, guys. Michael Trigg, monster tight end. I'm sure you've heard his name if you follow college football and if you follow Big 12 football. He's gotten 70 targets on the year. That's more than any other receiving target. And don't forget, guys, they shoot the ball downfield. So this is a deep threat, vertical threat tight end. Yards per reception for a tight end is at 15.2 yards per catch. That is high for a number 1 wide receiver. Not, wild to see a tight end with that type of number. He has 6 touchdowns on the year. And moving over here, this is one thing I was a little surprised about. He's had 15 contested catch opportunities, and he's only brought down 5 of them, because I have seen some of the highlights of him, so I was a little surprised to see that not be higher. And the other thing that I think does stand out with him is 70 targets, only 40 catches. Now, again, this team shoots it downfield, so that's worth mentioning, but still, that's a 57.1% of the time when he's targeted, does he actually catch the ball? That's pretty low. Like that's going to be as low as basically our lowest receivers on the team. And he has 5 drops on the year. Now, he has a lot of targets. 70 targets is a lot, but 5 drops is a lot of drops. I was doing some research for guys in that level of sample size. He has one of the highest drop rates in college football for guys with that sample size. Josh Cameron coming up next, guys. So 66 targets, 47 catches, 12.4 yards a catch, 5 touchdowns for this guy. Taking a look with him, He actually has 16 contested catch opportunities and has brought down 10 of them. That's a pretty impressive number. He's also fumbled twice. Oh, Michael Trigg has also broken 16 tackles, so solid number there. So basically, like, 1 out of 3 catches almost, or more than 1 out of 3 catches, he breaks a tackle. Josh Cameron, he's a guy, 12 forced missed tackles, and that is on 47 catches. So 1 out of 4 catches, he's breaking a tackle. I would say this. I mean, I'm not saying this isn't a good receiving squad. I think it's a very well-rounded receiving squad with some talent and yak yards. Most of these guys are doing their damage, getting downfield, getting open, catching the ball. Some of these guys have some pretty impressive yak, but most of it is about 5 to 6 yards. So not crazy, not bad either. So they're all very similar weapons from what I can see. Moving on to the rushing attack for Baylor. You know what? Let's actually save the rushing for later. Let's go ahead and move on to Baylor's offensive line. So Baylor's offensive line is a pretty good unit overall. Let me just reference my QB sack percentage. It's only 4.36% for them. So it's a pretty strong number. It's number 36 in the country. But I do think they have a little bit of, you dig a little deeper. It's one of those offensive lines that has some pretty glaring holes here. So this is their starting lineup. And looking at their starting lineup, guys, you can see what I'm talking about. So their guard and their center are actually really good pass blocking offensive linemen. You can see by the PFF grades, 80.3, 76.4. Those are very strong numbers. And then this tackle's, pretty decent. Not great, 13 pressures on the season, but he's not a liability. A 70.5 grade. That's a good grade, but it's the pressure rate's still pretty high. They do throw a lot though. But then you get a little higher up here, guys, and Ryan Langiel and Caden Siriaki, 17 and 24 pressures respectively. Those are high. Those are very high. I don't care how much you're throwing the ball. Those are high. And when you have 2 tackles that have actually allowed pretty decent pressure rates individually, you got to think with our defensive line, and we're about to go into them coming up next, with our pass rush and edge rushers, those offensive tackles are going to have a freaking bad day, dude. Let's go ahead and flip right over to it. Our pass rush. So we'll kind of flip to our pass defense that's going to be going against this. And honestly, it's kind of one of the unwritten fun matchups that I didn't realize coming into this game. It is kind of obvious. I just didn't realize it. But we're going to have one of the best pass defenses and pass rushing offensive lines against one of the best passing offenses in the country. This will be a very fun matchup for us to watch, especially considering if our aspirations are to get to the CFP, we better do a damn good job getting back there against this team and holding them to, hopefully 200, 225 passing yards and, hopefully a blowout, but you guys know that doesn't always happen. Okay. So let's go ahead and go over to Utah's pass rush. So taking a look, we're only going to go off guys that have at least 50 pass rush snaps. So, they'll be getting a decent amount of rotation. And so it all comes down to the king of the pass rush, our superstar breakout player of the year, John Henry Daly, guys. John Henry Daly has 41 pressures on the season and a 22.8 pass rush win percentage. Week after week, these numbers change about where he ranks, but basically all season, he has been at the top of pressure rate and at the top of pass rush win rate. This guy is an animal. He gets back there. You can see he has 10 sacks according to PFF on the year. He is a monster. He wrecks quarterbacks' days, wrecks passing offenses' game plans, and neither one of the offensive tackles that we just looked at for Baylor will be able to contain him. Now, the question is, if he goes against that guy that's allowed 24 pressures, John Henry Daly is going to feast. He is going to eat that guy's lunch. Now, the next thing is, well, who else do we have? Well, at pass rushers, for edge rushers, we've got Logan Fano, we've got Lance Holtzclaw. believe, yeah. So Logan Fano and Lance Holtzclaw are kind of going to be the guys that'll step up outside of him, right? They're going to share that next rotation. I believe they're both healthy. If that's not the case, someone dropped that in the chat, but I believe they're both healthy. But you look here, guys. Very strong pass rushers, 11.6% win percentage for Lance Holtzclaw, and he's got 10 pass rush or 10 pressures on where is it? 10 pressures on 90 pass rush snaps. So very strong pressure rate. Logan Fano on 161 pass rush snaps. He has 24, a 14.8 win percentage. These are two dominant pass rushers, right? They're not at the John Henry Daly level, but any other team, these are probably the better edge rusher on the team. Like just any other team, most other teams at least. These are probably the best edge rusher on that team. At least Logan Fano and Lance Holtzclaw, smaller sample size, but when he transferred in here, you knew what he was bringing. And Jonathan Hall, too, guys, another guy at linebacker at 12.1% pressure rate. All right, pass rush win rate, 17 pressures on 68 pass rush snaps. That's a really impressive number. Lander Barton, is he on here? Yeah. Sorry, I missed him. 14.9% pass rush win rate, and he actually has 14 pressures on 69 pass rush snaps. So those two at linebacker. And if you guys haven't been keeping up this season, one problem for Utah, like Jack Kelly on BYU is a great example of this, is a pass rushing linebacker that can disrupt things, really can change the game, guys. They can really get back there and make it very hard to throw. But just overall, guys, you can see we've got a very good pass rushing unit here, one of the best in the country, and with a good amount of depth too, right? And for defensive interior, these are pretty solid numbers. They're not great, but our defensive interior can get back there, can cause some havoc. Now let's go ahead and move on to our defensive guys in coverage against this passing attack. Let's kind of see how we're looking to fare. Okay. So taking a look here, guys. So for most yards allowed, you've got Smith Snowden at the top, right? And the good thing as a Utah fan with the Smith Snowden situation is he allowed 160 yards, something like that, 150 yards against Cincinnati. So as much as that number doesn't look great, it's not a great looking number. It's not terrible either. It's about 1 yard per coverage snap. That's not good, but it's not terrible. Almost all of those yards came in the last game. There was a mismatch, rumors that he might not be fully healthy, is what it is. But I'm not that worried. I think Smith Snowden's one of the better corners in college football. He had a bad night for whatever reason it was. I think we'll be just fine. Jackson Benny, 197 yards. Basically, all of those yards were against Texas Tech. Right? Like it's like that's been his number for a long time now, right in that range. Elijah Davis, I'm not sure where all of his yards came from. It feels like that did go up. Nate Ritchie's been injured for a while. That number was against Texas Tech. Jonathan Hall seems to have let up. I think he let up like 20 yards last week. But you can see, guys, Blake Cotton, he is actually shouted out for allowing one of the lowest reception percentages for his sample size. You guys see that there? 38.9 reception percentage allowed on 36 targets. So only 14 catches on 36 targets. And he's got 3 pass breakups. So really good work by him. Teo Johnson just really not targeted much. I mean, you look at that, guys, only 15 targets, 5 receptions allowed, only 35 yards. Has been a monster in the coverage game for us this year. So I mean, you look at that, guys, it kind of tells you our pass defense is legit. I mean, the guy you're worried about looking at those numbers is Smith freaking Snowden. I mean, we look very strong as a pass defense unit. I'm very happy about what we're bringing. We're going to get an opportunity to go toe-to-toe with one of the best passing offenses in the country. And the truth is, our pass rush should overcome any issues we have in coverage. Just being real about that, right? I do think there's something worth being said about it's a little bit of a tough matchup for us in the way we play. And the reason I say that is we want to man up. We have one of the highest man coverage rates in the country. We want to man up on you. We want to force you to take shots one-on-one. And Baylor, that's what they do. They want to take shots one-on-one, let their athletes make plays. So, I don't think Baylor's going to have zero success throwing the ball. I don't think it's going to be like Cincinnati, where Cincinnati was kind of the opposite, where they thrived on attacking zones and weren't very good against man. I hope Morgan does um, encompass some zone to just, keep them off balance, because this is a team that can make chunk plays. And I'm excited to see how we handle this. But I do think if there are any struggles there, our pass rush should make up for the difference. So I think it's, there are some causes for concern there, but again, I feel okay with it. So let's go ahead and move on to Utah. And like I said, let's start with our passing attack. I don't think the passing attack is going to be the main focus of this game, for Utah at least. But, it's worth going over. If we do struggle running the ball, we'll kind of just quickly go over what that'll look like. So you can see here 200 or 65.9% completion percentage for Devin Dampier, 8 big time throws, 9 turnover worthy plays. We keep it pretty safe, pretty modest with Devin Dampier. I didn't say his TD to INT ratio, 15 touchdowns, 5 picks. So that number is pretty strong. Moving over to his passing depth. So this is how he looks when he throws the ball downfield. So you can see here, it's going to start us off deep. This is where Devin Dampier has struggled quite a bit. 5 big time throws to 7 turnover worthy plays. Pretty rough throwing deep, guys. There's not much getting around it. He has 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions. This has been a huge criticism of Devin Dampier all year, is that he has absolutely struggled pushing the ball deep, and that's throws of 20 plus yards. And definitely teams have dared us to push the ball deep, and we haven't done a good job of it. Now, on the bright side, Devin early in the year was also struggling in the intermediate game, and this has improved drastically. Take a look here, guys. 9 touchdowns to 1 interception throwing the ball intermediate. So that's 10 to 20 yards. And I was pretty optimistic this would get better, because it was, looking at last year's numbers when he was at New Mexico, the intermediate game for Devin was really impressive. Like, this is what his numbers looked like, just really, really strong numbers. And then you look here, 2 big time throws, only 1 turnover worthy play. So throwing the ball intermediate is looking very strong for Devin Dampier. So let's hope we can find some ways to connect there, because if you get a couple intermediate 15-yard chunk plays and you can get those pretty consistently, that will do a ton to give you big running lanes, because those are some of the most annoying plays to defend as a defense. If anyone's ever played defense or coached defense, you guys probably know that they get that 15-yard play on you. From then on, the rest of that drive, the rest of the upcoming drives, you are thinking about those 15-yard throws, those play actions that go behind your head. You just don't want them to happen. And then obviously short, Devin is really impressed on short. This has not been an issue at all this year. 88 completion percentage, throwing the ball short. Did I say his completion percentage intermediate? I'll say it just to make sure I did. Yes, 71.4. And remember, guys, Sawyer Robertson, not 71.4, 57.1. And Sawyer Robertson, who's considered one of the best quarterbacks when it comes to throwing the ball, was at a 50% intermediate. So Devin Dampier has actually got him beat there. And it's not like a tiny sample size for Devin. Okay, so taking a look here, guys, for Devin Dampier, almost 40% of his throws are short throws. We like to dink and dunk. He's got an 88 completion percentage, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks, 1 big time throw, 1 turnover worthy play. Nothing bad, nothing good, right? not a lot to get excited about, but Devin does do a good job throwing the ball short, connecting, doesn't put the ball in harm's way a lot, and does, manufacture drives with that and make it kind of an extension of the running game. Now let's go ahead and move over to our receivers. So taking a look at our receivers, I do want to point something out. Like I mentioned, there's been a lot of talk about Michael Trigg and some of the receiving weapons for Baylor. Well, I want to give one of our guys a shout out, because he actually has a number that is better than any of the receivers for Baylor. So let's focus on these guys. So all these guys have received at least, I'll make it lower because we got to put Simmons in there too. I want to make sure we get him in there. Okay. So taking a look here, guys, I want Hunter Andrews injured. He's out for the year, so disregard him. Not that he's not a stud, but take a look here, guys. Ryan Davis, 2.72 yards per route run. That is a very impressive number. And I believe that's like half a yard more per route run than Michael Trigg, than any of their other receivers. So, really impressive number for Ryan Davis, and a guy that is kind of just flying under the radar as a stud that's just not getting the recognition. So, 56 receptions on the year, 649 yards, 4 touchdowns for the guy, just a beast. His yak definitely went up a little, and you can kind of see over here his forced missed tackles was a bit of a concern for me early in the year, but he's at 12 forced missed tackles now and 29 first downs on 56 catches. So half of his catches are going for first downs. Very impressive. And then if you've been watching, you guys would know that J.J. Buchanan and Larry Simmons, especially when it came to Burt Ficklin being in, have been very dynamic weapons, each of them with 3 touchdowns. They almost have as many touchdowns as Ryan Davis. J.J. Buchanan's more of the big physical receiver type, where Larry Simmons is a little more electric, a little more dynamic, jump up and go get the ball. But he's made some ridiculous catches on the sidelines. And if you look at those two guys, Larry Simmons has 7 catches, J.J. Buchanan has 15, and they each have 3 touchdowns. So Larry Simmons on 7 catches has 3 touchdowns. So almost half of his catches are touchdowns. So let's hope we can work them in. Dallin Bentley, another guy, our tight end, that hasn't received the, maybe not as much of the recognition as Michael Trigg and the hype as Michael Trigg, but he was, I saw he's a semifinalist, I believe, for the John Mackey Award. So love to see him getting the credit there. And you can see with Dallin Bentley, 49 targets, 32 catches, 3 touchdowns. He's forced 7 missed tackles, 20 first downs on 32 catches. So almost 2 out of 3 catches go for a first down. So good stuff there. And now let's take a look at our offensive line, a unit that, we talked about it when we were breaking down the team stats. We have not allowed many sacks. We're one of the best teams in the country. We were top, what was it? I'll pull it up here. We're 2.45% of the time is our quarterback getting sacked. That's number 6 in the country. It's a crazy number. And it comes down to our guys just looking like studs out there. So pass blocking. Why would it only do tight ends or running backs? That was a little weird. Anyways, so taking a look at our offensive linemen, let's bump this up to 200 snaps. So we only have the starters. And looking at these guys, and I want you to use those Baylor guys as a reference point. Our offensive tackles have allowed 5 and 6 pressures in Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu. And they have gone against some very good pass rush units. Those two are easily the best tackle duo in the country. I mean, I haven't looked at every single one in the lineup, and there's probably individual offensive tackles you can make the claim that is better than one or the other. But as a duo, 2 guys with a total of 600 pass blocking snaps have allowed 11 pressures with the number 25 strength of schedule in the country. That is pretty damn impressive. And our worst guy pass blocking is Michael Mokafisi with 10 pressures. And that's not bad. It's not like he's bad. He's like average. And then you got Jaron Kump, 6 pressures. And Tanoa Togiai, another beast. I mean, our pass blocking is unlike I've ever seen it. Now, I do think, we've been able to just run the ball down people's throats. And I think they do benefit at times from our ridiculous ability to run the ball. But let's be real, we wouldn't be running the ball so well if it wasn't for our awesome offensive line. So they're benefiting from their own work. So that is our passing attack. Now let's take a look at their pass defense and their pass rush is what we'll start with, because we just went over our defensive line or our offensive line. Let's see how their defensive line matches up. So not for Utah. Let's switch over to Baylor now. Okay. And again, guys, just to note, if you haven't already liked the video, we're going through the PFF grades now. If you like the video, it'll get it out to more people. Also, comment into the chat. We're going to do a Q&A session in a little bit before we close out. It'll be a pretty long Q&A, so we can get all your questions answered, and any comments you guys have, we can address them. So make sure you guys stick around and subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, so taking a look at their crew, let's go off guys that have at least 50 pass rush snaps, just like we did for us. Now, I want you to notice some differences here, guys. So they've got one good guy. This guy actually looks pretty damn good. Matthew Fobbs White, 30 pressures on the year. Looks like a good player. 15.6% pass rush win rate. That's a little better than Logan Fano, right? This is a good edge rusher. I'm not intimidated by him against our offensive tackles, though, right? I'm just not. And you look at Kylan Reed here, right? 57 pass rush snaps, 9.4% win rate. Solid number, not even close to as good as both of our linebackers when it comes to rushing the passer. Then you've got their other edge rushers. For edge rushers, guys, 6 to 7 to 8 is like decent for defensive interior players. For edge rushers, 8 and 6 is bad. When you're getting below 10, that's when you start to get in that bad range. You're below 9, and then 6.3. I mean, that's very low. So they've basically got one edge rusher. Their defensive interior is not terrible, but nothing special either. And that's about it when it comes to rushing the passer. That's what they've got. Now let's go ahead and check out their coverage unit. So taking a look at their coverage unit, let's see what they've got for us. So we'll go off guys just like we did for us that have at least 50 snaps. So guys that have at least 50 snaps, we'll sort by yards. How does a linebacker allow 283 yards? What does that tell you guys? Come on, you guys know what that means. A linebacker allowing 283 yards, that means tight ends, running backs, get them involved. What the hell is that? 283 yards. Their linebacker has allowed 50 more yards than any of our DBs. What in the heck? That is a nuts number. And then you look here, cornerback, 277 yards allowed. Another cornerback on only 148 coverage snaps, 202. Those guys, that's pretty high. This guy right here is, what is that, 1.6, 170 to 277. And this guy's what, 1.3? That's pretty high too. I mean, damn. And reception percentages, this guy not too high, 50, but this guy's almost 70. This guy's, holy crap, this guy's bad. No offense if that guy's watching this, but damn. So 259 coverage snaps. He's been targeted 30 times. So more than 10% of the time he's in coverage, he's getting targeted. And 23 catches allowed. So 77% of the times he's targeted, the receiver catches it. And he's allowed 283 yards. I mean, what is that, like 40 yards a game for a linebacker allowed in coverage? That's crazy. Well, I would say this. I mean, just right out the gate, you could see, I mean, these guys seem to get more coverage snaps, but these guys are all getting a good amount. This safety here, safety is not going to be one-on-one with our receivers, but you look here, guys, I think there's a lot of signs pointing that we won't just be able to run the ball. We'll also be able to throw the ball on these guys. Our offensive line's pass blocking better than they are. Their DBs don't look great in the matchup against our receivers. And more than that, our tight end and running backs should be able to feast on this freaking linebacker they got going here. So hopefully we can take some of those intermediate shots that Dampier has been taking such high advantage of lately. Okay, now let's talk about the fun part, guys. Why don't we, we'll save our rushing attack versus their rushing attack for the finale, right? Because I feel like that's kind of what we all want to see. But, let's start with their rushing attack versus our rushing defense. So taking a look at their rushing attack, guys, we've got, a trio of backs that doesn't look terrible. If we bring the attempts down, there's another guy that gets some attempts. He's gotten 11 attempts, not super talented, 3.2 yards per carry. And I'll add in Sawyer Robertson because he has run a little bit, 119 yards, 5 yards per run, 2 touchdowns, and 1 fumble. But you can see here, between their running backs, they've got 4 fumbles on, 252 carries, 261 carries. So, they're fumbling a decent amount there. None of them really are impressing much, just being honest with you guys. Yeah, their yards per carry looks decent, but nothing I really see. I would also say, like, the yards per carry looks decent, but when we look at these numbers, we're talking about 252 carries in the course of 9 games. So I'm going to pull out a calculator. 252 divided by 9. So we're talking about 28 carries between the three of them per game. So divide that by three. I mean, it's just not a very large sample size. It's not tiny. But again, that's not what they're relying on. And just doesn't look great. Doesn't look bad either. I think one thing that stood out to me when I was breaking them down was this forced missed tackle number. So I'm going to give you guys some stats here. So a good number is 30%. So that would be good. And then as you get to like 35, 40, that's like a great number. So this guy that's going to get the majority of their carries, the guy Bryson Washington with 129 attempts, he's got 23 forced missed tackles on 129 carries, 17.8. Pretty low, right? It's not terrible, but it's not good either. It's on the low end. There's actually this thing they have here called an elusive rating. And I guess I'll show you our guys and I'll show you theirs at the same time so you can get an idea of what we're talking about. And you can see the formula here. It's missed tackles forced divided by designed run attempts and receptions multiplied by yards after contact per attempt times 100. So basically it's when we combine your runs and your receptions, what percentage of those have broken tackles on them? It's basically what it is. And that's how you get the elusive rating. So Caden Knight, he's their guy with 71 carries. So he's kind of their number two. He is a 76, which is a solid number. This guy's their bell cow with 129 carries. He's at a 59.8, which is kind of rough. This guy with 52 carries, 16.3, quite rough. Now let's flip over to Utah so you guys can get an idea, and I think you'll be pretty impressed. So remember, their best guy was a 76.7. So Daniel Bray leads us. It's a smaller sample size, only 31 carries, but it's 139.3 elusive rating, nearly double what their best guy had. And then we got Wayshawn Parker, who does have a pretty big sample size, 85 carries, and he's got 130.3. Now, Nakari Rogers, pretty low elusive rating. Let's be real. I won't ignore that. But he is also our short down, short distance guy. It's not taking that into account. So just to give you an idea, their running backs aren't very elusive, right? They're not playmakers. And I think the numbers kind of show that. And I think one thing I can point out, though, on why they might be, getting some yards is, sorry, that's Utah. We always got to flip between them. I always wish PFF made it a little easier to switch between teams and navigate in and out of that. I always feel like they should do a better job of that. Anyways, I love PFF's system. I'm not complaining, but I wish it could be a little more smooth there. Don't forget to drop those questions in the chat, guys. We are fastly approaching our Q&A session, so be ready for that. Okay, run blocking for Baylor. So custom run blocks. Let's go off. What is this? Why is it only running backs? Anyways. Okay, so you can see here, guys, this tight end, he's only got 12 snaps, so let's only go off guys that are 50 run blocking snaps, so they're very likely to hit the field. So you can see here, again, run blocking is my least favorite stat to look at, or least favorite PFF grade to look at, because there's not a lot of stats. It's really just what's their grade. And they do have a lot of guys that are highly graded, right? Or at least average to above average. And this guy, their guard, is quite highly graded. So it does look like they have a decent run blocking offensive line. Caveat, just kind of like with us, where we've seen more success throwing the ball. I think when you're throwing the ball as much as they do on the few times you decide to run, it's only about 200 run blocking snaps on average, maybe 215 to 230 on average. It is easier to run when you're throwing so much. So just same caveat there with us. I'm not too worried about the running game. I just thought I'd address that. So now let's flip over to our run defense. And it hasn't been amazing. Let's be real about that, right? So 50, we're going off at guys that have at least 50 run defense snaps. So let's take a look here. And I'm going to sort by total snaps. And oh, wait, this is Baylor. Let's flip back over to Utah. Oh, you can tell it's getting late. It's getting late, people. Stick around with me here. We're going to have a fun time with the Q&A, but it's getting late. I think one good thing for Utah when I look at this is that no one has missed tackle percentage. So Smith Snowden is quite high. I noticed this when I was doing the pregame breakdown. It's not a huge sample, but it's about 15 tackles total. And if outside of his assist in like solo one-on-one tackles, 7 misses and 7 tackles. That's pretty low. And again, I am a Smith Sonic fan. I was surprised to see it was that bad. I know he had a couple games where he kind of like went for big hits and went for flashy plays when it was, the game was kind of in our favor. I wasn't too stressed about it. Like I remember Arizona State, I think he had 3 missed tackles just in that game, but that's a pretty rough look, just being honest. Not easy for me to defend that. Nate Ritchie, he's injured. Trey Reynolds, I think this is where it starts to look better, right? Trey Reynolds for a linebacker, you'd like that number to be lower, just being honest with you. Linebackers, you want that in the 10 to 15% range to be respectable, but not a huge sample size, 59. And I believe he actually has been a pretty monster pass rusher for us. Safeties, around 20s, not too bad for missed tackles. And you can see here, we do have a lot of guys that have like no missed tackles. Blake Cotton continues to stand out with very impressive numbers. Now, I do want to say something though. Missed tackles alone are not what makes a great run defense. This number is the stop percentage. And this is where I think our defense does thrive, because we actually do have a little bit of a high missed tackle percentage, just being honest, because I track a lot of teams. I see a lot of numbers. But this number, the stop percentage, is also pretty high for Utah. And a stop is a neutral or negative play for the offense. So it's basically a stop at the line on a run play or behind the line on a run play. And look how many of our players are in like 5% of their run defense snaps are a stop. Look how many freaking guys we have. So much of our defensive line. Look how many guys rotate in and have really good stop percentages. I mean, that's very impressive. Trey Reynolds, he does have the rough missed tackle, but over 10% of his run defense snaps are at or behind the line. And Supalona was 63 run defense snaps. He's at 12.9%. So we've got a really good playmaking run defense crew there. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the meat and potatoes, the bread and the butter, the whole shebang, our rushing attack versus their rushing defense. And this is where we should be eating and eating and eating, because we have done it against good rushing defenses, guys. The only teams that we've really struggled to run the ball against, BYU and Texas Tech. Those are really the only two. And Texas Tech was even more pronounced than BYU was. So I'm going to go off running backs that have 10 carries. So, it says, is it 10? Yeah. Why is he not popping up? Oh, okay. Never mind. So let's go off. I'm actually going to do 20 because I'm just going to get rid of Bryce Duke. Not that he's irrelevant, but just, this is our 3-headed monster here. So I want to focus on these 3. So Daniel Bray. Oh, and let's also add in Devin Dampier, because we didn't talk about his rushing numbers, but it's obviously a big part of our offense. So taking a look, guys, we've got Daniel Bray, Wayshawn Parker. Bird Thicklin might get some carries too, right? He's got half as many carries as Devin Dampier. Nakari Rogers, a ton of weapons for Utah running the ball here. And when you look at yards per attempt, guys, the only guy that doesn't have a very impressive yards per attempt is Nakari Rogers. And the truth is, Nakari Rogers is mainly a short yardage goal line back. And that number would be a lot better if we used him differently. He was a good running back coming in, and I think there's a reason he has such a pivotal role on this team. You can see 0 fumbles, 8 rushing touchdowns. He is, kind of one of those players that hasn't gotten his praise as much as he deserves. So I know his dad likes to watch the channel, so if he's watching, know that I'm still a fan. Anyways, talking about the players, okay? So Daniel Bray, lightning. We saw that 139.3 elusive rating. And you take a look, guys, 31 attempts, and he's got where is it? Missed tackles. 13 missed tackles on 31 attempts. So that's nearly half of his carries have a missed tackle. That is a crazy number. Remember, we talked about 35, 40% is a really good number. Well, that number is like insane. It's a smaller sample size, but it's still insane. And then he's got 6 catches for 57 yards on top of that. And don't forget, Daniel Bray really didn't get involved until we got to West Virginia. Like that was his first like real time where we were like, oh, damn, okay. I remember calling it out after the game. He only had 3 carries, but it was like, that kid looked good. He was electric. He was dynamic. He looked good. And he's just followed it up with some insane performances. I mean, think about that, guys. 246 yards, 31 carries, and 57 yards. So in basically 5 games, he's averaging 60 yards a game. And I feel like he's been coming on, even though there's a game where he basically wasn't used. But in the Cincinnati game, he had like 80 yards or something like that. So killing it. But I would say the star of the running back room is Wayshawn Parker. Wayshawn Parker on 85 carries, he's averaging 7.1 yards a carry. And again, Daniel Bray is averaging 7.9. But I do want to, like, the guy with the bigger sample that has done it game in and game out all season, Wayshawn Parker, 32 missed tackles, forced missed tackles on 85 carries. So another guy, he's doing it at a 40% pop. So that's a very, very good number. He's got 16 carries of 10 plus yards, and he's got 90 receiving yards on the season as well. So in total, he's got basically 700 yards in the year. And we've been slowly building and giving him more opportunities. It feels like we will see him get a good amount more carries in the competitive parts of the game as we close out this year. This group is nuts. Like, Nakari Rogers is arguably the guy that stands out because of the yards per carry, but his numbers are so good. It's so impressive. And you look here, guys, the Nakari Rogers, 8 touchdowns, 0 fumbles. He's also got 43 receiving yards, just a monster. Devin Dampier as well, guys. Devin Dampier, 552 rushing yards on the season. 88 rushing attempts, 6.3 yards a carry, a little high in the fumbles, 4 fumbles, but 5 rushing touchdowns, 17 carries of 10 plus yards, and 6 carries of 15 plus yards. He's dynamic, electric. Burt Ficklin, basically identical with a little less fumbles, but a smaller sample size. Also has 5 rushing touchdowns, has 11 carries of 10 plus yards, 5 carries of 15 plus yards. When he came in, like, Burt Ficklin looks like the future of the Utah program. When he came in during Devin's injury in the Colorado game, we just destroyed Colorado, but Burt Ficklin looked extremely impressive during that matchup. Like, had a ridiculous game where he was tracking for like a record-breaking night. The game was just not even competitive at halftime, 43-0. So the rushing attack for Utah is ridiculous. Let's take a look at our run blocking. I need some freaking water. This is an open one that's been sitting here a little bit, but wish me luck. Ooh, that one tasted a little weird. Not gonna lie to you guys, it tasted a little dusty. Anyways, so all right. Well, at least we got some water. So run blocking snaps, guys. Let's go to 50 run blocking snaps. So it'll count maybe a higher number. Let's do 100. I want to count the tight end. Okay, yeah. So 100. And you can see here, it's not bad. It's not great either. Some of the guys struggling a little bit with the run blocking. Spencer Fano, elite run blocker. Dallin Bentley looks above average. It doesn't look great. It doesn't look bad. Again, it's the number I like the least. It's the PFF grade I don't love because there's no like, hey, this is why we're grading him this. It's basically just like, hey, this is what we're giving you. Take it for what it is. This is our thoughts. Like, there's nothing else behind it from what I can see. So yeah, not a huge fan of the run blocking grades, but Spencer Fano does look really good. Some of the other guys are struggling, and some of the guys look average. Okay, now let's take a look at their rushing defense. So let's do allergies. All right, so rushing defense for Baylor. And this is why I wanted to show you guys our numbers as well for rushing defense, so you could get a barometer of what we're talking about with Baylor. Boom. So stop percentage. Remember, we were looking at our guys. So at about right here with our team is where the 6% was starting, something like that. It was like about 10. Number 10, we had like a guy in the mid to high 5s, and it went significantly up from there. We had multiple guys over 10s, and they actually look better than us in the missed tackle percentage. When you look at this, it looks better than us. But this number is so much different that it explains why our run defenses are so drastically different. And again, our run defense has struggled at times, right? We're not one of the top run defenses in the country. We've kind of sold out to stop the pass, and that's evident by the stats. And our run defense at times has struggled. But even though we are still, because we get plays, like we end drives with some of these plays, and we've missed tackles, which is why the yards are where they at. But we still have looked very good in when our defense needs to make plays, they can. They are dynamic. They're electric to get back there. Okay, guys, that was the PFF grades. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We are going to enter the Q&A in a second. Before we get to the Q&A, I do want to give a final prediction for Baylor versus Utah. So, guys, final prediction for Baylor versus Utah. This is for me as we go through. Feel free to drop your predictions in the chat for how you think this game is going to go. So, my prediction, guys, is I think there's too much in our favor, just being real about it, where what they do really well is throw the ball. What our defense defends really well is throwing the ball. That's not a good recipe for success for them. Now, if they could match up better with us on defense with our offense, things might feel a little differently, but that's not the case. What we do really well is run the ball. What they really don't do well is defend the rushing attack. And this is a high-powered offense, and I expect them to get some points on us. But we are just as high-powered of an offense with a high-powered defense alongside it that specializes in stopping what they do best. And because of that, I see this being a pretty dominant win for Utah. And I call balls and strikes. If anyone watches this channel, you should know that I call balls and strikes. And if I feel like we're going to dominate, I'll call that we're going to dominate. If I feel like it's going to be tight, I feel like it's going to be tight. I think we are going to have a lot of success against this team. I think this team will move the ball against us through the air at times, but they will struggle to score and they will struggle to put together consistent drives. Our pass rush will make them make mistakes. So this is kind of what I see. I see Utah getting a lot of points here, guys. They're allowing 32 points a game, and we are averaging almost 37 points a game. And when you factor that in, and we've played a tougher schedule, I've got Utah putting up 41 points against Baylor, and I've got Baylor putting up 17 points against Utah. 41-17, Utah destroys Baylor. Big time win for Utah in Waco. Maybe you could say give them, make it 41-20 because of the home field. But I will be surprised if this is not a powerful Utah win against another good team. Baylor doesn't suck like this. I hope that was clear when I went through these numbers. Baylor is not a trash team. This is a bad matchup for Baylor and a really good matchup for us from what I saw. Okay, people, that is my final prediction. Now we are moving into the Q&A. So like the video so we can get it out to some more people. But also, if you haven't, drop your comments, drop your questions in the chat. I'm going to be running through the questions, so you can feel free to keep dropping questions in the chat. That's fine. You don't have to drop them right away. Okay. Boom. Steven, this is the last chat we had. There are too many centipedes near my house, near RES, Rice Echo Stadium. Okay. Boom. Stop My Airport says Utah beats BYU if they play again. Utah is actually playing like a team. I will agree with you that I think we'll be much more competitive against Texas Tech. And I kind of feel the same way, especially on a neutral field. I think we would beat BYU right now. We feel like a different team after that BYU game. Boom. Dylan says, hey, okay, great. Chase Miller says, Baylor seems like a good team, but it looks like Utah is an absolute matchup nightmare for them. You took the words out of my mouth. Chase. I think the stats showed that when we looked at the team stats, and I think the actual PFF grades showed it maybe even to a stronger degree. And Tyler says, gosh, I forgot about Trigg. He's an absolute baller. Yeah, he's good for sure, but I didn't think he was a monster. Steven says, is JHD healthy though? I think JHD is healthy. Bro, it's wild just to keep up with all this crap. Let me see. Utah injury report. I hope he's healthy. I can't imagine he's not healthy, dude. That'd be nuts. Let's see. I don't think we have anything yet, but hopefully he's healthy. And off the bye week, I would imagine he is. So let's hope he's healthy. I'm going to assume he's healthy. Chase Miller says it seems like Nate Ritchie going down was almost a good thing for our second day. I'm not going to say that because he got injured, but he was struggling when he went down and was missing a lot of tackles, allowing a lot of yards, and did seem to be getting picked on a little bit. Smith Snowden is better than JT Broughton. I mean, that's not saying much. Steve, I know you've been around a while, and I was a bit of a JT Broughton hater. I was shocked that he did so well at TCU. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I looked up like stats, like PFF stats for coverage grades for guys that had a certain number of snaps. And there was like, I don't know, there was like 100, 200 guys on this list, something like that. And JT Broughton was at the very bottom of the list when he played at Utah. That was ridiculous. Steven said, I played and coached defense. Those intermediate plays are the devil. Yeah, they are just morale breaking, right? They are morale breaking. They just feel so bad because you like, it's 3rd and 3, and then all of a sudden they get a 14-yard chunk play on you. That just sucks. Oliver says, who's winning this weekend? I just gave my prediction a little while ago. Make sure you guys drop your predictions in the chat. But I had Utah 41 and Baylor 17. But I gave them, you factor in the home field. Let's call it 41-20. Steve says Nate Johnson looked like our future. He did. That's why I'm not, I want to see more from Bird, but already Bird showed more than Nate. Let's be real. Nate never started a full game and dominated a team the way that Bird did. That never happened. So Stop My Airport says 48-10. Okay, I'm with it. And Steven says, I call it 42-10 in another stream. I believe in Utah. Steven says, is Tobias Merriweather going to do anything? Should he? Well, Steven, I remember early in the year, there was so much hype around Tobias Merriweather. But if you watch this channel, I made a point of stating that, like, he was not the one I was excited about. I was excited about Ryan Davis. I feel like, I think there was a little bit of, people see this tall, athletic specimen in Tobias Merriweather, and they see this, like Wes Welker looking white dude in Ryan Davis. And I think there was a little bit of bias there. And I let the stats do the talking, and the stats and the data were showing me that Ryan Davis should be a playmaker. Anyways, Stop My Airport says, last week I said 38-14, so close. Actually, this week will be 48-10. Okay, I'm with you. I think we'll have a dominant performance as well. I mean, I'm guessing we win by at least 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, that's pretty confident. Oliver says, why are the Utes going to beat them by 30? Well, Oliver, you'll have to watch back the video. I went over all of it. Our rushing, our defense is good at stopping what they do best. We have an elite pass defense against an elite pass offense. We also have an elite rushing offense, which they have a very, very poor rushing defense. And those are just the fact that they're going to have a struggle fest on offense is my projection. And we're not. Like, they'll have some success, but we should have a lot of success on offense. Steve says it's going to be 350 degrees in Waco again. I hope not. I remember that game a couple years ago, or last year. Yeah. Stop My Airport says, I think Utah's hardest opponent is going to be Kansas at 10 a.m. Yeah, Kansas is legit. And I think all 3 teams have legit quarterbacks, right? Avery Johnson's probably the worst of the 3, but he's not bad. He's like a solid quarterback. But we're going to play Jalen Daniels. We're going to play Sawyer Robertson, Avery Johnson. It's a stretch here, guys. We'll get tested. But I think it's a perfect stretch. It's like a very winnable stretch to get us to the CFP, but also not like a cakewalk to where we won't, earn our stripes. Like, if we can get 2-3 score wins against all these teams, I feel like it'll basically be undeniable that we should be in the CFP. Steve says JHD was limping 2 weeks ago, but everyone was. Hopefully he's good, dude. That would be a nightmare. I still think we'd be fine in this game, but just in general, like, having JHD as we make this next run that we're hoping to make for the CFP is a big deal. Stop My Airport says, I think BYU will lose 2 more games like they did last year. Yeah, I think all of us that we watched our team against Texas Tech, we watched our team against BYU. BYU is a good, very good team. They beat us. They were undefeated, but Texas Tech was different. Texas Tech was 3/4 of us just basically not moving the ball at all, where BYU was kind of like us just not finishing drives. Those are the difference in the two games. And that's different to not move the ball at all than to not finish drives. And it was, I wouldn't be shocked to see BYU have some hiccups after that. They played TCU, they play Cincinnati. And I also think there'll be the added pressure of, hey, Utah beat the crap out of Cincinnati. You better look good. And that could make them choke there. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but could be a factor. Steve said he had one INT in like 5 years. I believe you're referring to JT Broughton. Oliver says Ryan Davis is the GOAT. For real, dude. He is a beast, dude. He says Ryan Davis going in the draft. Not sure. I believe this is his last year of eligibility. If someone knows differently, let me know. But if he is going in the draft, I mean, he's tracking for like 850 yards maybe. So a good year, but not like a crazy year. Steve said played and coached for the same team that Cal's current QB, Jaron Sagapoluti, played for. Oh, cool. Chase says, do you think Dampier is missing open guys or are guys not getting open? I was at the Cincy game, and it seemed like there were lots of missed opportunities down the field. Well, let me tell you what I said earlier, Chase. I don't know how much you heard it all, but deep Dampier is absolutely struggling. Like it's unabashed. It is rough. If you want a recipe to beat Utah, it is force Dampier. Like if you can stop the run and you can force him to throw downfield, not intermediate, 20, 25 plus yards, he has problems with that. It's pretty clear. The good thing and what's made this second half of the season so exciting and great is that he is in the intermediate throws have been fire. We saw that grade. It was a 90-something grade intermediate, completing 57% of his passes, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. And that's accounting for the fact that the beginning of the season, it was rough, right? It was rough. Car Wash says, first will be an easy win versus Baylor. Baylor is trash and bad. They're not trash, though, Car Wash. They're not trash. Nate Tillman will become Jalen Johnson. Okay. I haven't seen that so far when he's on the field. Not that he looks bad, but I haven't seen that while he's been on the field, but hopefully he does. Car Wash says, I got us winning 200. Okay, Car Wash. You and the crazy predictions. Daxton says, oh, shoot, I caught this live. How far in are we? We're deep, man. We're about as deep as you get. We're in the Q&A section. We're about an hour and a half in. Good to have you here, though. Yeah, it's we went over everything. So when you get a chance, Daxton, watch it back. But we did a full breakdown of the team stats for both teams. We did PFF grade deep dives on both teams, so a lot of fun. It was a good show. But feel free to drop your predictions and your comments and questions in the chat. Steven says, Wes Welker looking white guy. You like that one? I really believe that's why people were so excited about Tobias Merriweather. I think there was a little bit of discrimination against Ryan Davis there. Let's be honest. They're not as exciting to see when they're on the field. There's a little bit of that. Car Wash's game is on Saturday at 5 Mountain Time. That's 5 p.m. Utah time on ESPN2. Okay, thanks, Car Wash. Oliver says, good night, brother. I'm in Texas and have to wake up in 5 hours. Yeah, I got to wake up at like earlier than I want to say. Okay, Steve says, take care, Oliver. Yep. Chase, if Cincy and BYU lose one more each, we will likely make the CCG. Yeah, it's kind of complicated. I think it's like Cincinnati has to beat BYU and then we make the conference championship game. I believe that's it. If Cincinnati beats BYU, somewhere in that deep math, because we have the win over Cincy, we would get in. Boom. Oh, 77 degrees. That's great. 77 degrees. Stop My Airport says, do you think Cincy can make it into the playoffs? And do you think that would help us make the playoffs if BYU were to completely drop it? I don't think Cincinnati can make the playoffs. They would need a crazy run from here on out, just so we're on the same page, because they have a really bad loss against Utah. And yeah, I don't see it. I mean, when you're at 25 with only 3 weeks left, you would just need blowout after blowout after blowout from here on. So I think they play Texas Tech and BYU. Though I guess there's a world where Cincinnati can make the playoff, and that would help our case. But there's a reason we looked the way we looked against Texas Tech. They're really, really good. I still don't understand how they lost to Arizona State. Dampier plays and throws like a basketball player, and I kind of like it. 37-24 Utah. It's your prediction, Dax. Do you think Wayshawn Parker could handle 25 carries? It seems like this could be a good game to let him eat a little. Yeah, I would say give Wayshawn Parker a lot of carries when the game's competitive, and once it gets uncompetitive, which it looks, we all kind of seem to feel like it's going to, don't keep just drowning him in carries. We need him as we get to the later part of the season, and as we hopefully get to that conference championship game in the CFP. Stop My Airport says, my bad, I meant conference championship game, not playoffs. Yeah, Cincinnati could definitely get to the conference championship game, and if they did, there's definitely a path to the CFP for them. I guess I didn't consider that. Cool. Hey, you know what else we could do? We could look at the conference championship game scenarios. You guys want to do that? I think we will. Let's look at the conference championship game scenario. There's a little flow chart someone posted on Twitter. What's his name? Josh Furlong, I think it was. Let's go. I shared it. I retweeted it or whatever a couple days ago, so we can take a look at it. All right, where are we? All right, I'm just going to go to Josh Furlong's profile. I can't find it on here. Yeah, you guys want to look at that? I want to take a look at that. All right, Josh Furlong. Yeah, here's this little flow chart. All right. I believe this is the most updated one. So let's share this screen here. Car Wash says, how's living in the Philippines? I don't live in the Philippines anymore. I lived there. I lived there for 4 months, though. It was great. I met a lot of great people. A lot of nice people. I still manage the team out there, so I keep in touch with them all. I was actually having a lot of fun joking around with them and stuff tonight, and I missed them. So I was funny you ask. Okay, so did Utah win out? So Utah clearly has to win out. Any shot to the conference championship game, Utah clearly has to win out. So let's just get that one out of the way. Okay, did Texas Tech win out? I'm going to say most likely scenario is yes. And then if BYU does not lose another game and Texas Tech wins out, then they play in the conference championship. And then even here, you can see, did Texas Tech win out? Their final games are West Virginia and UCF. I mean, it's very, very clear they're going to win out. It'd be very unlikely. And then did BYU lose a second game? If they did, was it to Cincinnati? Yes. So, okay, so this is a little bit of news. I wasn't quite aware of this. So Cincinnati would have to lose 2 more games. What is Cincinnati's schedule from here on out? So they play Arizona, BYU, and TCU. Yeah, it's not a cakewalk for Cincinnati. That's actually a decent little schedule there. It's significantly tougher schedule than we have. So what we would need is, let's see. So if BYU loses to Cincinnati, and then, so basically BYU has to lose to Cincinnati. So that's a game we're going to want to watch. It's in 2 weeks on November 22nd. BYU and Cincinnati will play. And again, that's if BYU doesn't lose other games that can happen too. But did BYU lose to Cincinnati? And then does Cincinnati lose a second game? So Cincinnati would have to beat BYU and then lose to either Arizona or TCU. I mean, that sounds pretty damn realistic to me. I don't know about you guys. That seems pretty realistic to me. I could see it. All right, guys. Well, I am about to get out of here. Drop the video a like. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. Lots of predictions, lots of questions. Thanks for joining us tonight, guys.